Welcome to Authentic as Fuck podcast. My name is San. I'm a marketer who teaches storytelling. And in this podcast, we talk with real entrepreneurs and we go through their stories and kind of give feedback and try to work through their stories. So first we have first guest we have Ruta. Hi Ruta.
Hey everybody.
How are you?
Good,
All right,
good. Thanks.
let's start with where you're from, what you do, and then I actually want you to share. I read your story already, but share your story again.
Okay, cool. I'm from Lithuania. I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist, a mom trying to get back to work and trying to learn some storytelling to make my work more engaging. Okay. So, I will share my story. Okay, so I have it written down. Okay, so having information is not enough. One time I was climbing a longer climb with my friends. We were climbing on this tiny little Greek island called Telendos. Probably nobody ever heard about it. It's a small island, no roads, not many people, just a bunch of goats and a bunch of climbers. So we've been climbing for a few hours and we're scrambling our way up the vertical wall. We've done like around 200 meters, um, around 80 meters to go. And the rock was a bit wobbly at some places, kind of flaky and sketchy. And everybody's that climbing is wearing a hard helmet. And everybody knows that if a rock is falling, you have to yell rock so the people who are down there know. And when you hear rock, what you do is you lean into the wall and you hope that it falls somewhere behind you. And so my friend is climbing above me, and I see her take a grip and like rip like a huge chunk of the wall, and that chunk is starting to tumble down, and we both lean into the wall and scream rock. And I look at my friends and my partners, and everybody, what they do is like they do like this and they ask what. So knowing the information, I think, is never enough. We need to practice the information so that it becomes an embodied knowledge, and that's the only way to learn, I think. That's my
Got it.
story.
So for everybody that's just listening, basically, what happened was the the rock fell down, and she looked down at her friends, and her friends are supposed to lean in against the wall so they don't get hit by a rock. But instead, what they did was they looked up and they're like, "What rock? I don't see a rock." So that's what she's talking about. Okay, all right. So here's my first question. I didn't really see a clear connection. We have to remember that when we tell a story, things have to be crystal clear for even a 6-year old child to understand. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I didn't see the clear connection between the lesson and the story. So, the lesson that you learned is knowing is not enough, right? So,
Yeah.
can you explain a little bit more how that relates to that story? First of all, it doesn't work because the fact that you have to even explain it to me means that it already doesn't work.
Okay.
But I'm gonna
Okay.
let you explain it to me so that you'll see why it doesn't work.
Okay. So we have, as climbers, we have this information that what to do in case if a rock is falling. But if you haven't practiced it enough times, you do what you usually do. You start looking for what is happening, where the sound is coming from, etc. And if we would have practiced enough times to do that movement, then and that practice would be ingrained in our brains and our bodies, you would instinctively do the right thing. But now what you do is what you usually do, just your automatic reaction, not your learned reaction. So that's what I was trying to say.
Got it. then I think you need to tell the story in a little bit of different perspective. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because we were trying to lean into use the rock climbing as a metaphor too much here. What you need to do is, instead of focusing on the rock climbing, you need to focus on the fact that you're an experienced rock climber and they are not. Because as soon as you tell the story from my perspective, I have no clue that I thought those guys are just as experienced as you. Do you understand what I mean? I didn't know that
Yeah.
you were more experienced and they're not. So you're used to the rock, boom, rock, boom, rock, boom. You're used to that. But to them, they're not used to it. So they just go into their natural look. What? Do you understand what I mean? So that's the
Yeah.
real difference here, right? So what we need to focus on is not the nature of rock climbing, but the fact that you've been doing it for a long time and that they have so they were new,
I
right?
wasn't like, yeah, I wasn't, that's right, but I wasn't trying to say that I'm more experienced. It was just that it was happening close to me and I saw what was happening, and I guess my instinct was
Okay.
it's a big rock. I'm just saying in general that all of us need to practice the stuff,
Yeah.
be it
Because you're saying
storytelling
that
or
you saw the
whatever.
rock. You saw the rock. So obviously you see the rock is coming down. That's why
Yeah.
to you it's logical that they should. But because for them, they don't actually see the rock.
Yeah.
So they just go into their natural. So maybe, I mean, here's the thing. So let me try to see. Let me try to. It's a far stretch, but let me try to see the connection between that and practicing. But this is why I don't like it when people try to force lessons into stories
But
instead of just letting
I
it.
didn't feel like I was forcing it. Like, yeah, it's
Oh, really?
interesting. Yeah. Because
Yeah, it feels
to me, it's
forced.
like, yeah, okay. Huh.
What's the real lesson you learned that day?
Like, like another example.
Mm,
If you're climbing on icy stuff and you have an axe and you fall down on
mhm,
ice, you need to know how to stop yourself. And you need to
mhm.
practice many times that situation so that when you're actually falling you would know how to stop yourself. So what I want to say is that probably we need to practice in like a safe
Can I
controlled
ask you something?
environment. Yeah.
Did you start with the lesson and then came up with the story, or did you start with the story first and then figure out the lesson?
You got me. um hmm I think a lesson, because I was doing the challenge and I remembered the situation and I was like, why did we not do what we were supposed to do? Why did
Mm,
we do the wrong thing? Because we haven't
mm.
practiced enough. We heard about how to do that thing, but we never practiced.
Okay, I think there's something there, like meaning. Okay, so okay, I think there's something different there, which is you know what the instruction is, but when you actually haven't done it before, but that's not really practice because think about it. Do you think it would have made a difference for you if you did it 100 times versus 3 times?
Hmm.
Because I feel like it just have to happen when if they once they see somebody says rock, they look up and they get hit by a rock. I guarantee you from that point on, they're gonna change.
Well,
Don't you
that's
think?
probably not the
Do
practice
you,
you want to do. But yeah.
no, that's what I mean. But do you really think it's the practice, or do you think it's the fact that first, even if they don't get hit, the fact that they saw the rock coming down and knowing, okay, next time when somebody hears rock, I should just lean in. Do you think
But
that's not really practice? It's lived in
experience.
experience versus knowledge.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to do, like the context
Hmm.
that I would use the story in,
Yeah,
would be with my clients, telling them that we need to practice our tools in a safe environment, not when the kicks in, or not when we are in the situation that is
got it.
frightening to us. So with
I see
the
what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
rock falling, we would practice in a climbing gym with no rocks. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And do people actually do that? So can I ask you, did you guys do that? Did you guys practice in a practice gym with no rocks and you yelled rock and did you guys practice that?
No, that particular thing we haven't done. We practice other things, but not this.
Okay, so how do you know that you're supposed to practice that? Or did you know that you're supposed to practice that but you didn't? Or do
No,
you
it's
understand what I
just
mean?
we had the information, but we didn't practice it. Nobody
Also, you knew
um
you were supposed to practice it.
like now,
Like
as in
in the
like.
no 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 no. Okay, look, back then, before you guys actually went to the mountain, when you were in the gym, did you guys know that you were supposed to practice the hey rock and then or
No,
no?
no, like nobody tells you that, but it makes sense that you should do it. Like after my
Okay, so
experience
it's
now.
okay, so after that, you thought, oh, we should have probably practiced that before, or did somebody
Yeah.
tell you that that's what you're supposed to do? Because even after that, my immediate mind wouldn't be like the first thing would be like, oh, we should practice that. That's not where my mind goes.
Mhm.
Do you like you see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to
Yeah.
pick apart your story because yes, if we want to force it, we can force it. But the thing is, the things that doesn't naturally come, stories only works. It's almost like it magically fit. It's like, oh, of course. Without that effect, it doesn't work, right?
I
And when you force
understand.
it, it just doesn't work. Because I think there's a much better example that teaches that lesson. It's just not this one. And I think the reason why is because I don't think you yourself learned that lesson from this.
Okay.
I think I so when I try to lie, that always happened. Let's say I know this really did happen to me, and I did really learn this lesson, but I didn't learn this lesson from there. I learned it from something else. But if I try to force it, it just doesn't work.
Okay. And yeah, and I think it's a bit too complicated. So I was doing the challenge, I was thinking about the situations, and I'm trying to have my own story bank. And I think the problem was that I kind of looked at the stories, and tried to pick one. And probably what happened is I tried to see what lesson might be learned there. So, yeah, I was probably forcing it. But then my question then
No, I
is,
think it
yeah,
can work,
okay.
but I think you just need to find a way to tell that story from a different. The way you learn that lesson is okay.
I think it could be another
The
lesson. Sorry.
yeah, the best. I was gonna say that, but the best way to go about it is like exactly at that moment, because that is an interesting moment, right? When you're like, ah, hey, look, and then you look down and they're like, what? And you're like, almost like that face palm emoji, right? Like, you know, like so at that moment something happened in your head. It's like, oh, that's interesting that they all looked up and do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And and what's interesting about it is that what it's not and immediately where my mind goes is it is not practice.
Maybe
Immediately where my
instinct.
mind goes, yeah, is instinct or like
Mm.
human instinct, human nature, like immediate reaction, right? That something to do with that where so maybe the lesson is more like that. Maybe lesson is into a little bit more complex where a lot of times we we live life reacting to this our a natural instinct when that most of the time doesn't serve us. And the way we get over this is by practicing it in a safer environment.
Like practicing a new behavior.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like practicing. Oh, got it. I don't know if you got. We probably got to the same conclusion, but I'm just gonna say it. Okay, so maybe it's something like, um, if you want to quit smoking. So, like, a lot of people do want to quit smoking. A lot of people do want to go to the gym. A lot of people want to post every day. We all want to do these things, right? But what we do is we just go into our natural habitat, like our natural reaction every on a daily basis. Like, oh, I'm gonna post. Oh, man, I'm gonna watch Netflix. Like, we're just falling into our natural habitats, right? So if for us to change our life and do this thing that we're not used to doing every day, uncomfortable thing, going to the gym or whatever it is every day, our body has to learn that new habit, right? For example, like us having that knowledge is not good enough. Our body has to learn it. For example, I was going rock climbing for the first time, blah, 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 and I had no idea that these rocks can fall, blah, blah, blah. And the person said, when if you do that at rock falls, just yell rock. And I look up, and then I'm supposed to go down, so the rock falls. Obvious, right? Logical. So we were like, oh, we're all good. We don't need to worry about that. We go, and then I see a rock falling, and I go, rock, and I look down, and my friends are looking up. They're like, what? We're like, no, you're supposed. They knew they were supposed to do that, but they didn't. Their natural instinct kicked in, and they just looked up and say, what? And that's what's happening. You know you're supposed to post every day. You know you're supposed to go to the gym, but what's happening is this is what's happening, right? So
That's
I think
awesome. Yeah.
it does work. It's just that I didn't see it from your perspective. So once I saw it from your perspective, it's like, oh, okay. But it's not. See, the keyword is this. I think you were practicing. You were focusing on the word practice, and less focused on the natural instinct, natural reaction
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
which is what it really is. You know what I mean?
I'm trying now to understand how to apply this and what to apply next time. So simplify, because you said it in like
Yeah.
the climbing part, you said it in a
It's. I think it's
very
what not
simple
to
way.
do.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I think, and you're gonna agree with me. It's what you shouldn't have done. Is
Okay.
that you were thinking too much.
Okay.
At that moment, I think what you should have done was just maybe do a 30-minute meditation and then go to that place in your mind, right? With your rock, boom, 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 boom. Really go to that place and immediately think about what 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 was what was the thing that made me go, oh shit, that's odd. That's interesting that they did that. Oh, why did they do, like, really go into that moment? What was the thing you were feeling, right? Why did I do that? Why did that reaction, right? And then I would go into other memories in your life where you felt the similar thing. And you told me about the ice pick, the ice
Mhm.
pick thing, right? And then maybe there's something else like that where, um, when you first learn to ride a bicycle, of course you're scared to just let go and go. They say go faster, because every time you slow down, you're gonna fall, right? But of course, logically, you know, but you can't get your body to, like. So think of all the other times in your life where that was true, right? Like, or where you felt that same feeling, and then see what's the commonality there.
Yeah.
And I think then you'll quickly realize the commonality is not necessarily practice, because there are certain things like this, right? Where, um, if I just go scuba diving all the time, or whatever I learn it is, the more practice I do. Like, for example, if I become a better designer, right, after 2 years, it's not anything to do with habits that made me a better designer. It's just the act of practicing it over time gradually made me a better designer, which is different than what you are talking about. What you are
Yeah.
talking about is, do- it's
Habits, more of a
practice in order
habit.
to go against your natural instinct. That's what you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about. What I'm talking about is just the practice in general over time.
For
So it's a different.
skills.
It's the
Yeah.
same word, but it means different things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I still have time for a question or
Yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
much?
You got 10 minutes.
So now I'm thinking, okay, so in
It's a
practice.
really, really great story, by the way. Like,
Thanks.
I mean, it's such a great example
Mm,
of why you can't go to the gym, why you're not meditating. It's such a great example, right? It's because of the reason why the same person goes like, "What?" It's the same reason.
that's gonna be
Such a
one
good
of
story.
my nuggets. Yeah, golden nuggets. But now I'm thinking, like, okay, so how should I go about creating these stories? I want to use them in my work, right? Let's say I'm giving a talk or I'm doing a workshop and I need a story for a topic. Do I, yeah,
The
how
first
do,
thing I would do,
hmm?
I wouldn't start with the story actually. The first thing I would do is start with like how I started, right? Like, hey, you should post every day, but you're not. You should go to the gym every day, but you're not. You should meditate every day. You should quit smoking, but you're not. You shouldn't have that extra drink, but you're going to. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right when you say that, immediately your audience is going like, "Oh shit, that's me. Oh
Mm-hmm.
shit, that's oh the thing about drinking, that's me. Oh, the thing about not posting it, that's me." Right? So immediately their eyes ears open up. They're like, "Okay, what is she gonna say next?" Right? And then it goes, "What if I were?" And then so what I'm doing is I'm putting myself in a person who's dealing with the struggle that I'm about to teach them. Okay, who is dealing with that, like, and be specific about it. Maybe this person has an addiction, maybe this person has
Mm-hmm.
a problem with overeating or whatever it is, right? Just have that in your mind. What does this person need to hear for this person to even care? Number one,
Mm-hmm.
because without, remember, attention always comes first, so without attention there's nothing. So first I'm going to that. So in my mind, okay, what they need to hear is this. The problem that I'm the pain that they're going through, right? So and then I'm gonna now connect it somehow here, right? So once I've done that, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump into the story, but I'm gonna give a little bit of context before I jump. Otherwise, they might get confusing. So then the next thing I'm doing is like, hey, you're struggling with that, right? What if I were to told you, like, you know like, I'll just lay out the ground rule. Like, you know how Titanic, I would give away the ending there. Meaning, you know how Titanic, when you go into the movie, the boat is gonna sink. The ship is gonna sink. So give away the ending there. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to give away the ending and then show them how you get there so that they can discover it themselves. Like, oh, throughout the journey. You know what I mean? So you give away the ending by saying this. What if I were to tell you that the reason why you're not posting, the reason why you're not going to the gym, blah, 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 has nothing to do with you not knowing something. And it has everything to do with your natural instinct, your body, the way your body is designed by nature, right? For example, when
Mm-hmm.
I was rock climbing, blah, 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 you tell that whole story, right? And then you go, and the reason why that person didn't look up, even though they knew is the same reason why you're not going to the gym, even though you know you should, right? And then I tied the two at the end, right? But I think that it's good to have some mystery up front where, like, okay, where is this going? Where is this going? But
Okay.
not
Yeah.
too much that it's so
Mm-hmm.
detached.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah. It does
I
help.
guess the best advice I can give is I really try to put myself in the mind of the person that needs to hear this. And if I put myself in that, like the worst person, right? Like meaning an addict, somebody who's an addict who just can't get out of it. Like, what is that person really like? If I'm in that mind, I'm not. All I'm thinking about is my next fix. I'm not worried about career. I'm not worried about any of that. What do I need to hear, right?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So really putting yourself in that person's shoe, I think is is how you do
Okay.
that.
Okay. That's very helpful. Very, very helpful. But do you think that we collect these stories throughout life? Because it's hard just to, I have this training on Friday that I'm doing. I need a couple of stories. If you have an agenda and you need a few stories, I guess what can potentially happen,
I think
it's
by
what
but
happened to
it
me.
here's the thing. By then it's too late, I think. It's like saying oh, I want to write a book, and by the time you write a book and you want to promote it, but you didn't grow your social media, it's already too late. You should have been doing that for 2 years, right? So what I'm saying is this: no matter what, every day you should be collecting stories, and you should be storytelling, practicing, blah blah blah, and keep putting like today you just got one, right? Maybe next week you'll get another one. Maybe next week you get another one. I just need you to keep collecting stories all the time, right? And keep them in your arsenal. And now you have clear stories. Okay, I have this story that teaches this lesson, this story that teaches less. You have all of them. Now when you do write your TED talk or you do that thing, now you can be like, okay, the talk I'm trying to give right now is about this. I think the best story to tell is combination of this and boom, boom, right? And then now like, those are all the recipes you've made over the years, and now you're opening a restaurant, and you're like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm gonna serve this dish. Boom. Do you understand what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not like you come
completely.
up with the recipe the day you open the restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Otherwise, it won't really work.
yeah.
And the beauty of it is this: like that, the story that you gave is just so perfect because it's a perfect example of going from the myth to the truth, the old to the new, right away in an instant, right? But a lot of times the stories aren't like that. So what you might have to do is you might have to show a picture of the before you and the
Hmm.
old you, right? Like and the new you, right? And then if it's something that happened gradually, right? Like I learned to love myself gradually, right? Then you're not gonna have that one moment where it
Yeah.
happened, right? So in that case, what you need to do is you need to give me one slice of a story here where you didn't love yourself, right? Where you were like, so draw a picture of a moment like that for me. And then now in the future, when you do love yourself, what does that look like? For example, when you don't love yourself, something it might be something like, oh, when I go on video, I make sure, well, I didn't say that right. Oh, I did. I'm looking at every detail of how I look. I'm using filters, blah, blah, blah. Like, and it would take me like 30 minutes to post a 60-second story because I'm doing that, right? Whereas in what loving yourself looks like is like just loving yourself, watching, making all the mistake, and then looking at it and goes like, holy shit, this is dope. Like,
That's
you know what I
another
mean?
story for me.
But you
Cool.
know what I mean, right? Like here's a
Yeah.
slice. You're just giving a little slice of here. What's the best example to give from my past life?
Hmm.
What's the best example to give from my new life? And boom, that's a story. You know?
Okay, awesome. I will make reels out of both of these, and if they don't get viral, it means Instagram is corrupt, and
Instagram is
and,
corrupt.
and I'm
Well, this
going
is what I'll say.
to TikTok.
This is what I'll say. If you post, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. If you post these, and then if you keep posting stories like these 100 times, and one of them doesn't go, at least one of them doesn't go viral, that means, like, I can guarantee you that means there's something wrong with the algorithm. But I can also guarantee you that's not gonna happen. Because every time I say there's something wrong with the algorithm, like I see one of my posts do well, so I'm like, obviously not.
Okay.
you know.
Okay, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ruda. Great
Thank
story. I can't wait to see it on Instagram or TikTok. I'm gonna bring on Candia. Hey, Candia.
Hey, son. Hey,
Awesome.
Ruta. So happy to
So
be
good to see
here.
you. Okay, so let's start with Introduce yourself for everyone, where you're from, what you do, and then tell us your story.
Okay, my name is Candia Raquel. I am a Mexican scientist, artist, and movement teacher that could eat tacos for the rest of her life and also helps workaholics to overcome physical numbness and connect to pleasure in order to move sensually and completely free from inhibition.
And can you share your story?
Sure. So
You can read it or you can just tell it. It doesn't matter. Yeah,
okay, let's see
up to
how
you.
does it comes out. Trying to add the
Yeah,
feedback that you gave to Ruta.
love it.
So I believe we are living in a society where pleasure has become a product. Like we have to hustle to make bank and get the babe, the boat, the vacations in the Bahamas. And when we go there, we find like we have only trained like our own numbness and automatic pilot, and we don't find that pleasure. We see that like you get the perfect chocolate cake and you need another slice because you didn't enjoy it, and that goes all the way to the bedroom. So in a way, sensuality is not something fixed, but it's about how you experience pleasure and life through sensing with your senses. And as a scientist, I've been trained to detach my feelings from my thought and from what I am seeing. Like being objective, it's cool.
Objective.
And as a dancer training in ballet, I've been trained to not pay attention to pain, like to dance on pointed shoes. Like the theater doesn't care if you're suffering. You want them to, you want to get the applause. So when I was
Mm.
like compliant to this mindset, there was one day that I was running my 80-hour work week and came out exhausted, burnout from a long day of work, and I fell down from the stairs. Like I could listen how my back cracked like celery, like, and I couldn't move. And it turned out that a muscle detached from my spine. So when I entered recovery, I was convinced I was to overcome that challenging situation with my trained means of endurance, determination, hard will, pushing, no pain, no gain. And every time I used my willpower to get up, pain just sat me back down. Like I just couldn't move, I couldn't walk. I taught my Pilates teacher trainings like sitting in the floor, just dictating it. And it was like a humbling blow in seeing that my spirit strength was worthless in that situation until I discovered like if I get like in a certain setup, my body hurt less. Like when you're having a I was gonna say a menstrual cramp, but you're not a woman, so you won't relate. But maybe you have had a tremendous stomach ache, like you're dying and crunching, and you find like an angle, like this hurts less, and if I move a little, it hurts even, and then like you can finally sleep and
I mean, I
rest
had that with my neck pain.
with your neck pain. Like you don't want to
Like,
get out
uh,
from that angle, and then you even discover like
because once I know if I move a little bit, it's gonna hurt.
yeah, exactly. You're like, don't touch. And if you elaborate on that, very subtlety and very nuanced, like listening to your sensations, you discover like, maybe this is the next step on the pathway on moving in a truly organic way. Like this is the way to connect through your senses and let your own nature guide you. And what you discover is that this is health, like this is a natural way, and this is sensuality. So it's not about going to the Bahamas to get pleasure. it's actually more humbling and simple. It's like realizing that we are already like paradise. Like just breathing, it's
Hmm.
super complex. Just being alive right now, like the amount
Hmm.
of hormones that the kidney makes, like the speed our brains are working, like this is it. And it's the cliche that don't look for it outwardly, find it inwardly. But we need
Hmm.
to like reverse our education to come back to our body, to come back to what we say our center of power, that is this way of being and living as pleasurably. So pleasure
Yeah.
and sensuality is the way, in a way.
Okay. I
Okay.
mean, obviously, I'm familiar with your content, so it's different for me than somebody who's like new to your content. So first, I have so many questions. Number one, do you think that was a story?
I think that what were like 25 stories. I tried to
Okay.
like.
Do you have trouble word vomiting? Do you have trouble with word vomiting?
No, I am very good at.
You know what word vomiting is?
Yeah, like just.
Like,
Huh.
because that's what I feel like from from the listener's perspective. You just cover so many different topics. You talked about pleasure versus pain. You talked about the society, how forces you to go after pleasure, and you talked about sensuality, and you talked about um yeah, you talked about like being in touch, in tune with yourself. You talked about how the hustle culture. You talked about there's just so many topics you talked about. I don't know where to focus on.
Okay.
Like you've almost lost me because you talk too much about different topics.
Okay.
I wish you would have just talked about one topic 10 times
Okay.
rather than talking about 10 topics once each.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Do you understand what I
One
mean?
topic.
First things is depending on who you talk, like what I said to Ruda before. The first thing is you can't really tell a story unless you know who you're talking to, who you're telling your story to, right? Because if I'm talking to somebody who's like 20 years old, who's chasing that private jet life and blah blah blah, just trying to hustle culture, grow their Instagram. If I'm talking to that person, I can talk about sensuality, pain, and blah, blah, blah. Nothing is going in that person's ear. It's like, what? What are you talking about? I love that stuff. Yeah, right. Versus if I'm talking about somebody who's been in a spiritual journey, and you talking about the chocolate and the like pleasure and all of that, they get what they're like on board. Yeah, okay. So depending on who you talk to, you have to completely shift your story. So first thing I don't understand is that who are you talking to,
Yeah.
right? Because that's gonna change everything.
Yeah. Definitely. I want to talk to the workaholic that has some experience with yoga, meditation, body mind connection, and want to take their practice to the core level. And if I was to choose like one focus on everything I said, I think the key would be to nail my origin story and just say like I fell from the stairs and I couldn't recover.
Let's forget about origin story for a second.
Okay.
Like, let's not even think about we need to do that. The only thing right now, just be here with me, 100% present. The only thing I want to know right now is that audience, okay, that workaholic who did some meditation, got into some spiritual practice, did some yoga, or whatever it is, right? So let me ask you, do you think that person already understands what you're saying? Meaning pain and pleasure are two different things. Like pain pain, like pleasure and or like okay. Pleasure is not the opposite of pain. Do you think they understand that? To a certain degree, I think when you say something like, "Oh, in society we try to chase pleasure," right? The drugs, the or whatever. right? And we try to stay away from pain, right? Like that we don't want to, we want to numb ourselves from the pain, right? Like if you say all of that shit, they're gonna be like, yeah, 100%. They're gonna agree with all of that. You just preach. You're not teaching them anything new. You're just preaching to the choir. What's the one thing that you think needs to get through to their head?
That pleasure is in sensing through the senses. Like you need to become sensually aware. So when you find the pizza or the jet or the intimacy with your soulmate or whatever, you can actually enjoy that. And pleasure can be as simple as, wow, the screen is super soft, and it's it's developing sensual pleasure awareness. And I feel that
But so you don't think they? If you said that, you don't think those people will agree with me?
in
I
that
mean, if I just went, if I bumped into somebody who's like a, you know, who who read Power of Now, who's been going to doing yoga for like 3 years, right? Who does meditate, who does go listen to Oprah and all of that, kind of spiritual person, right? And you go to them and you talked about, like pleasure is not like those. It's like pleasure is like in the sense that you can feel it in the moment, blah blah blah. You don't think they're gonna agree with you?
they
They'll
will.
probably agree with you, right?
Yeah, because we all know it. We That's the way we experience the world when babies
No,
until
no, no.
we
But
became
what I'm saying is,
workaholics.
what I'm saying is, to them, they've already heard that before. They already understand that. They've already. Do you understand what I mean? I'm trying to come up. Here's the thing. Here's the difference between. This is like the biggest problem I have with people. Everybody's always trying to target people that are kind of like at the same level of them or just one level below them. That's what everybody's trying to target. But the people that you have to be targeting is the people that are 10 steps below you, not one step below you. And this drives me crazy because whenever I try to talk to somebody who's like trying to target that person, right? So let's say, for example, for me, let's say I'm trying to go after the people that are like, um, uh, who's already been doing marketing, who's already very like, who's been storytelling, who's already been doing a lot of those things, right? It's my goal. It's not my intention to go after those people. I actually want to go get them. But what's happening is because of the nature of the things that I'm talking about, the only people that are interested in that stuff that I'm talking about are the people that are kind of at a certain level or something like that, right? So that's why it's so important to know who you're talking to, because if I'm talking to people that are like has been doing this for like 3 years, they're already building funnels, blah blah blah. They're already doing all of that. If I'm talking to them, then a lot of the stuff that I'm saying, I guess not right now, but let's say it was 5 years ago, me, the old me, trying to teach those people and talk to them, what's going to happen is I'm just going to be saying shit that they already know. It's like I'm preaching to the choir. That's why nobody cares. Like, son, you're saying shit that I already know, right? Like, I actually think you point out a really, really, really big problem in this industry is that a lot of people are here trying to teach people that are here because they think that this stuff is too boring, it's too elementary. So they're trying to teach these people. And that's exactly what happened to you. And I said, are you targeting the people that really needs help, who doesn't know anything about that? Or are you targeting these people? And you said people that are already kind of aware of this, blah, 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 right? No?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I
Okay.
reframe
So
my original focus. Like the thing I have, the people I have worked the most with are people from the federal power of justice and um, accountants from factories, and like people that spend 10 hours a day sitting in front of the computer, overburdened with responsibilities, that they come to me not knowing how to tell their right hand from their left hand. So that's who I am speaking to. But well, I get distracted and derailed.
What do you think is the one that drew them to you? Because a lot of people that are like that, who are like workaholics and things like that, they actually, it's like drug addicts. They don't even realize that they have a problem. They don't even realize that they need to seek help. So the
Yes,
fact that if a drug addict came to you and said, "Hey, I need help," that already is huge, something huge from other addicts. Okay, so what does it think
I
that makes them
I
do that?
offer them something very practical, that is posture, because you can tell that my posture here is collapsed, and you can tell that my posture
Yeah,
is aligned. So
and
it's
that's kind of what I said, because you did that whole posture workshop with us, and
uh-huh,
that's what I said. If that's your audience,
uh-huh.
those people are not in the spiritual realm,
Yeah,
where
no,
they
no.
don't. That, so by telling the first part of your story that you tell, you're losing them. It's almost like it's almost like you're trying to teach as if you're trying to talk to these spiritual people,
Hmm.
when your real customers and your real
Yes,
audience is not
yes,
at
yes,
all.
yes,
So
yes,
you need to completely shift your speaking.
yes.
Unless you do want to target those people,
No,
then I don't know. Then you have to have a
no,
different product,
no,
I think,
and
because they're not buying it.
yeah, and I I noticed one blind spot, that is that most of my communication is with colleagues and people that I invite to the podcast. That I am inviting people that are not necessarily movers, but connect with this view and relevance of sensuality and etc. But like I need to go back to having a Zoom coffee with my own clients and listen how
Real
was
people.
their, yeah,
I call
like,
them real people.
yeah, like real people, like how was their day in the office, like how are they doing with the husband, are they enjoying their New Year's diet, like if they are enjoying the sense
From
of the
there,
food and etc. Like that's for
by having that conversation with them, you can figure out, oh, you know how you did that and you had pain. What's happening there is because your body is feeling like, you can still explain your stuff, but tied to a practical thing.
tied to a practical thing.
So here's how I would tell your story.
Ta-da!
And I'm only able to do this because I know you and I know your content and things like that. If that wasn't the case, I will be asking you a lot of questions. Okay. So the way I would tell your story is, again, put yourself in that person's shoe, that accountant, that person who's sitting all day, blah 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 blah, who doesn't care about spirituality, who doesn't care about mind body connection. All of that stuff is like, okay, Dr. Phil, that's what they're doing. Okay. So, but they do feel pain, maybe, and they do feel disconnected, maybe. So drill into one specific thing like that, right? Hey, like, you look forward to that vacation all week. You save the money and spend all that money on vacation, and then you just to go there, and then day one you're like, oh, this is it. Like, I'm kind of bored, or whatever it is, right? Or you, like, whatever that you're seeking pleasure in, whether it's like alcohol or drugs or whatever. Like, you give a specific example of how you chased pleasure and then you didn't actually get that pleasure, right? So start there, right? And then I would like, this is a complex story. You see what you're doing is a little bit more complex than most things. So, and I would tie that. So now you talked about pleasure, right? And how you're seeking false sense of pleasure, and you give examples of how people do that. and then now you, or you can even give your own example. This is how I did that, right? Or something like that. And then now you go to the opposite side, which is pain. And we do the same thing on the pain side. And the way we do it is by trying to avoid pain, to numb pain, to cover it up with pleasure, whatever it is, right? And that's how we do it, right? And what happens is, that's why, you know, when you go to physical therapy, right? What they're gonna do is they're gonna like say you fight that by you just like overcoming and forcing it, and that's what happened to me. Like this is what happened to my back. Blah, 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 that's what happened to me. So now, okay, let's look at this part of this. So all the up until they're gonna agree with everything you said, even if they're not spiritual. Like, and I didn't even talk about anything spiritual or anything like that. I just brought everything down to earth, right? And then I think that's the moment where you introduce. Okay, so what that's showing you is that when we're chasing pleasure, when we're trying to cover up pain, we're not actually getting any real pleasure, or we're not actually getting rid of the pain or anything like that. That's what's really happening there. And and how I realized that is I met this guy, who taught me that you can actually lean into your pain. You can feel your pain. You can feel all of the senses, and that's how you do it. And a good example is when you are when your neck hurts and you're kind of stuck in this moment. Even if you move it a little bit, you can't, like, and you just want to stay in that moment, right? And then this is how we try to avoid pain. But what we should be doing is you just move it slightly, feel that pain. Oh, you you understand it, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you can move it a little bit more. And once you start to work with your pain, work with your body, and fully understand your body, this is how you can really truly get rid of the pain. Or you can really work with the pain rather than trying to cover it up and put it sweep it under the rug with alcohol or weed or whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's how I would tell the story without using any uh buzzwords, because then that's what the accountant needs to hear. That's what that 9 to 5 desk worker needs to hear, really. And I would incorporate a lot of your examples from your own thing, right? When that happened, when they go, I was like, I'm gonna fix this by doing more physical therapy. I'm gonna fix this by overworking. Yeah, give all those examples. Yeah, but yeah, on a high level, the advice I would give you, Candia, and I would actually give this advice to also a lot of people that are out there who are in the spiritual space. What I would say is, first, understand who your audience is. Is your audience, are you preaching to the choir? Or do you want to preach to the people who are not the choir and you want to convert them? Like, it's like, are you a Christian who's only speaking to other Christians? Or are you a Christian who's speaking to non-Christian and trying to convert them? That's how I would, right? So once you know that, then you know you need to change your language then. Because if you go to the non-Christians and start talking about, oh, Lord Jesus is your savior, like, they're gonna be like, get the fuck out of here. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, that would be the best advice I can give you, Candia.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, thank you,
much.
thank you for still
Thank you so much.
coming.
Great advice. Such an honor to be here, and always so much appreciation for everything that you teach us at Night Owl Nation. Definitely the best community I have ever been. I've grown so much. You're so generous. Gigi is so generous too. The people there is amazing. Like, really, what you're doing is so important for so many people, rippling with so many benefits. So really, thank you, Sanji.
Thanks, Candia. Yeah, for everyone who doesn't know, Candia has been with us since like day one. So yeah, And I'm so glad that we were able to do this, and I was able to help you through that, because I know you've been struggling with your story, and I think the root of the problem is maybe you're speaking to the wrong audience. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Candia. Thank you. See you next week. Cheers. Bye.